impressive if you ask me. Honda really knew what they were doing, and they had a goal that they set out to accomplish, and I feel like they achieved it. But yeah, we're going to get on the highway so you guys can see how it gets up and goes. But at least in city commuting, I'm rarely above 3,000 RPM. It's just a very docile, smooth engine. Visibility of that gear indicator and the odometer and the fuel gauge and the clock, all that's over here in the center screen. It's not the best. Sometimes I have to shift my head a little bit up and down to see it, but I think that's because I have polarized sunglasses. But in terms of the analog tachometer and speedometer, you really can't fault them. They do the job. Even at nighttime, they're fairly easy to read. I don't remember if they're backlit, but they're still super easy to read, so I wouldn't worry too much. It is an air-cooled motor, so you really have to understand that by pushing this bike, you are probably getting the oil hotter than it would normally like to get. Just like that, we're at 65 miles an hour, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty easy. Cruising at 3,000 RPM at 65 miles an hour. Engine feels super strong. Just rolling on the throttle, and you can get to real quick speeds if you really want to. That's in 6th gear. Pulls much harder in 3rd, obviously. But yeah, I mean, the Showa dual bending valve forks do a great job. I have a super brace installed to stabilize the forks. It really does aid in the feel of the front wheel when you're in a corner. In the back, there are 2 dual shocks by Showa, if I remember correctly. They do a good job. The ride quality, I would say, is perfectly fine. You hit a pothole and you're not going to get bucked out of your seat, and it gives you enough feedback that you don't feel like you're wallowing over bumps. I wouldn't call this a canyon carver, but I have taken this to the canyons and it's performed pretty well. A lot of my rider group friends are very impressed with how this keeps up with them. I think a big portion of that are the 2 big honking disc brakes in the front. The ABS system is really unintrusive, and if you ask me, plenty of stopping power with the OEM pads and the OEM rotors. The rear has a tendency to, let's say, overheat. I just noticed fade much more quickly on this bike in the rear brake than I do on other bikes. The brakes are not hydraulically linked, so if you use the front brake, you're not using any of the rear brake, vice versa. But yeah, I mean, it's pleasant at highway speeds. The mirrors do a really good job at not vibrating. I would say the mirrors are absolutely perfect, to be honest. I've seen a lot of motorcycle where the mirrors are basically useless at highway speeds. And that's not what you want. Lane filtering time. This bike is great for lane filtering too. There's been some times where I feel like it's been a little too tight for me to make that gap, but I'd be lying if I said I could take that gap in a different motorcycle. This is surprisingly narrow for what this machine is. Besides that, love the paint. Paint's great. The header pipes are dual walled, so they don't get too gnarly after just riding for a brief moment. Whee! Yeah, the bike has